Hello, welcome to RC Video Reviews. Today we're taking a look at the 1300mm PA-18 Super Cub from FMS. Before we get into it, I need to let you know this video is sponsored by FMS, who sent me this Cub for review, and this Cub is also part of the beginner series of RC planes I'm working on with FMS. During that live stream, we'll go through all the models that I've built and flown for the beginner series. We're gonna give away some airplanes, merchandise, and we have a whole lot of coupon codes to give away as well. But you have to be on the live stream in order to win. Make sure you show up for that live stream. With that out of the way, let's get into the content. First up, we'll cover some specifications on the Cub. This is a 1300mm wingspan, which is 51 inches if you're in the US. Overall length is 38 inches. It weighs about 1,450 grams. It uses a 3536 850 kV brushless motor paired with a Predator 40 amp ESC. It requires 6 9-gram servos and a 6-channel radio, of course, to go with it. Center of gravity is between 60 and 70 millimeters from the leading edge, and it runs an 11x7 prop on a 3-cell 2200. The estimated flying time is about 5 minutes, which sounds a little short to me for this type of airplane, but we'll see when we get to the field. And assembly time takes about 10 minutes. This is a ready-to-fly version, which means it comes with the radio, a battery, a charger, the servos, motor, ESC all installed. It should take you very little time to put this one together. And the Cub also comes with a Reflex V2, which I've kind of come to like for their simplicity. I also like to show FMS packing because they do a really nice job packing their planes up for delivery. You can see there are styrofoam separators for the wings. They're all taped in, so the wings are held separate from each other. The fuselage is tucked away from everything else. So during shipping, when these things are on the truck or on the boat and they're moving around, they won't get knocked around and mess up your airplane. If you're new to radio control, you're going to hear all kinds of acronyms. That's one thing radio control as a hobby has plenty of, and that's acronyms. Some of the acronyms you'll hear when buying planes are PNP, you'll hear RTF, BNF, and ARF. I thought I'd take just a minute to explain what those mean. When it comes to RTF, that means ready to fly. And what the manufacturer is trying to tell you is that they include everything in the box that you need to fly the plane. So when you buy this box, you can literally put the plane together, take the radio, the battery, and go fly the plane. So in this case, they include a FlySky non-computerized radio, and it uses the AFH DS2A protocol, which is really nice because when you outgrow this radio, and if you stay in the hobby long enough, you will, you can use other radio technologies to bind with this airplane, so you don't have to change the receiver. In any event, this is a very basic radio. It uses AA batteries in the back. It does actually have a trainer port, and there's no screen, so there's no model profiles or anything like that, but you have basic servo reversing, a power switch, a bind button down here, and a couple of trim switches, a couple of mode switches up at the top. But it is all you need to get started flying. So if you're new to the hobby and you want to see what it's about without spending a lot of money on a more advanced radio, these ready-to-fly options are a compelling idea because everything you need to get started is in the box. Additionally, for ready to fly, they also include batteries. So this is what we call a LiPo 3S 2200 battery, and this is designed for that plane. One of the nice things about batteries that are included is that the balance of the plane should work out correctly, because batteries are one of the things that we move around in the plane to help us get it balanced correctly. And if they include a battery out of the factory, that will tell you that this plane should balance correctly with this battery in the designated spot inside the plane. So this is a 3-cell battery. That means it has a peak voltage of around 12.6 volts. And then finally, they include a very basic charger. This is a very simple charger. There are no buttons or controls. And in fact, there's only one plug-in point, and that's the balance lead right here. So when you charge your battery, all you have to do is take this balance plug and plug it in right there. And if the charger is plugged in, it will go to work charging the battery over these balance leads. The nice thing about this for a beginner, you won't really make any mistakes. All you've got to do is plug it in and it does the job for you. It will stop charging when it's supposed to stop charging. So the radio, the charger, and the battery, those are the things that elevate an airplane to ready to fly. Plug and play is another version where you won't get a receiver, a battery, and a charger, but it'll have everything else. It'll have the motor, the servos, and the ESC already available or installed in the plane, and these are the things you don't get in a plug and play. But a plug and play basically is ready to go. You just supply the battery, the receiver, and the radio technology, and you're ready to go fly. Bind and Fly is another format that's out there, and what they're telling you with Bind and Fly is you basically get a plug and play which has the motor, ESC, and servos already installed, but they also add a receiver. So the only thing you have to supply is the radio and then the battery and the charger, but the receiver is already included in the plane. That's called Bind and Fly. You don't see a whole lot of Bind and Fly options out there outside of one particular vendor. Most of them don't do Bind and Fly. They either do Ready to Fly or Plug and Play or ARF. So ARF is the last version or the last iteration of these models, and ARF stands for Almost Ready to Fly. And what that means is the airframe is completed. You have to assemble the airframe and put it together, and you also have to add your own electronics. It will not come with things like servos, ESC, batteries, radios, transmitters. Doesn't come with any of that. So that's just a basic plane that's ready for you to put together and add your own electronics. I just wanted to spend a minute on that because FMS has done a nice job with their ready-to-fly versions. They use a well-respected radio technology in AFH DS2A, so that's a very reliable radio link. Basic radio, but good radio link, and they do include everything you need to get up and running. And there's two sides to the coin when it comes to budget. Yes, this is a rudimentary charger, but they're also keeping prices down. So if you're new to the hobby and you're a beginner and you don't have a whole bunch of equipment yet, which you will accrue over time, this helps you get access to the hobby without spending a fortune. So yes, this is basic equipment, but they do that to keep costs down, which makes the aircraft and the model more accessible by more people. Next up, we'll take a look at the hardware. This one comes with a wing spar and some wing supports. The wing supports are already assembled. They've got the hinge secondary wing support and of course a spar tube for the wings. There's also a small spar tube that's either going to be for incidence alignment or the elevator, and I'm going to guess that's going to be for the elevator and stabilizer. Here is the prop, and this is an 11x7 prop, just a generic one, no name prop. There's a Reflex V2 USB cable, so if you need to update the profile on your Reflex V2 gyro, they include the cable to do that. And they include a binding plug for the receiver. So sometimes you need that if you need to rebind for some reason, or if you're going to add a different transmitter, you might need to rebind your receiver to a new transmitter. So they include a binding plug to do that, and a couple of stick ends for the radio. There's a 3-part spinner. There's the back plate. There's a little bit of a standoff to provide separation for the spinner, which acts as a nut as well. So you can see there's a brass nut inserted into the plastic, so the spinner itself is the nut. And then last up for hardware, we've got this little bag of parts, and you guys know what I say about these things, right? The smaller the bag of parts, the faster it goes together. The book says this one takes about 10 minutes, and that looks probably about right based on the limited number of screws I see in this bag. Last up for accessories is the manual. This is a black and white paper manual. It includes an addendum for the Reflex V2 gyro and an addendum for the FS I4X transmitter that comes with the Ready to Fly version. If you don't get the Ready to Fly version, you won't get that addendum. And then as far as the manual goes, it's very typical FMS. It's got several nice engineering diagrams showing where everything connects. And I just noticed there's a little cotter pin in there to hold the wing support on. I kind of like that because it means that wing support will come off the airplane very easily without tools. So nice touch, I do like that. And then for the rest of the manual, there's information about your pre-flight checks, how your controls should be set up, where the center of gravity is, and how to use the different holes on the horns and the arms for the servo and the connecting horns on the control surfaces. There's also information about how to program the ESC, which is very good. That's all included, everything you need to know because it's a Ready to Fly. And then we move over to German, and then French, and then it looks like Chinese in the back of the manual. So there you go. Everything you need in the manual is right there. I think it's very thorough for a Ready to Fly. Nice job. First up is the back half of the fuselage. So this one's got a little spar and a couple of connecting wires. So it looks like it's going to break down and get real small real easy if you want. That's actually kind of convenient if, say, for example, you have a small car. You can see the vertical stabilizer is already formed into the tail part of the fuselage. Servos are installed. You are going to need to connect your linkage, and the tail wheel's installed. They use these rubber captures on the back. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see that or not, but there's just a little bit of cracking on there. I'm not too worried about it because it's not like a load-bearing part, right? The load comes right here at the joint. That's where the load happens. So I'm not too concerned about that, but I will keep an eye on that. If there's an issue, it would probably be a simple matter just to wick a little thin CA in there and just to reinforce things. So not too worried about that. There is a plastic capture for the horizontal stabilizer and the elevator right there. So that means it'll be nice and square. That's an important thing for setting up these planes. You really want to make sure your horizontal stabilizer is parallel with your wings, and that the leading edge of your horizontal stabilizer is equidistant from the leading edge of the horizontal stabilizer to each wingtip. So one to the port side, one to the starboard side. That's how you make sure things are square. They're kind of taking care of that for you by embedding a plastic housing. So you don't have to worry too much about whether or not it's square. The model will ensure it's square. All right, that's it for the back half of the fuselage. Let's take a look at the wings. This is the port wing, and much like the Cessna, it's got the landing light out here on the wing, which I think is very cool, and it does have navigation lights on this one, which is also very cool. On the bottom side of the wing, you can see we've already got our servos installed for ailerons and flaps. They use beauty tape over the servos and the wiring, which makes everything look nice and clean, and they've also got mounting points for the wing supports. There are plastic supports here on the wing root to hold the wing onto the fuselage. And here are the wires for connections to the flaps and ailerons. And then this is the wire for your navigation lights. In terms of the construction, there's a look at the leading edge, and it looks very straight to me, no issues there. Here's a look at the trailing edge. I don't see any warpage. I'll get it up on the side so you can see that as well. I don't see any warpage, nice straight trailing edge. And keep in mind there are flaps and ailerons, so that's why you see that little separation there. So ailerons and flaps. They are EPO hinges, so don't forget before you fly this one to flex those. The best thing to do is disconnect the linkage from the horn and just flex the surface. And the reason you do that is because you don't want that fresh EPO hinge to load up your servo. Okay, so disconnect it and just flex the surface on your own a little bit. Here's a look at the starboard wing, and I do like the graphics on this. The black and white is really cool. It's a nice paint job. Just be aware there's the slightest hint of overspray right there on the leading edge paint for where the black meets the white. The gray looks like a decal, so no overspray there at all. Navigation lights installed. No landing light on this wing, but that's normal. That's the way it's supposed to be. And then again, all the connections are made on the back. You've got your flaps connected with a ball link and your aileron connected with a ball link as well. So everything's already done. That's the kind of thing that makes the assembly on these planes go very quick. Next up is the fuselage. This is the forward part of the fuselage. You can see the continuation of the numbers, and that's where the tail section slides in. And on the top, there's a little screw hole to screw the tail section into the main fuselage. On the front of the plane, there's a little latch that removes the cockpit glass. And inside, you've got the FlySky receiver. That is an FS-IA6 receiver. 2 antennas for that one. They're using an XT60 for the ESC connection. Yay, I'm happy to see that. Good job. And then there is the Reflex V2 gyro right there. So pretty much everything you need. A couple of loose wires out here for flaps and ailerons. And it looks like the flaps are connected directly to the receiver. And if you're eagle-eyed, you notice there are 3 of these. I think 2 are for flaps and 1 is probably power for your navigation lights. That's my guess. And then there's a couple of other loose wires in here for ailerons. I see 3 on the aileron lead as well. Not sure what the deal is with that. We'll have to do some investigation to figure that out. There's also Velcro down here on the plate to attach your battery, and there's a loop to secure the battery to the battery plate. So everything you need inside to get this one in the air. Very nice. Here's a look at the port side of the fuselage. I'm not sure what kind of bird that is. Is that a raven? Maybe an eagle? Not sure. It's black and white, so I can't tell. Very cool looking graphics on the side. I do like the mountain scheme. That's pretty cool. Up front, there is access to the motor, but I'll point out there are decals that cover the plastic to the EPO. So if you do want to access the motor, you're going to have to cut that. Don't just start pulling on it because that'll stretch out your decals. You have to cut that free, and then you'll be able to pop that off if for some reason you need access to the motor. And same thing on the starboard side. You'll have to cut that decal as well. And while we're on the starboard side, here's a look there. Very cool graphics. I like the graphics. Different. It's neat. Looks cool. All right, that's it for the fuselage. Next up is the landing gear. If you like this VTOL type gear, man, you've got it in spades. This is a big bouncy set of gear. Those wheels are very bouncy. So a lot of grace on landing with this type of gear because these wheels will absorb your impacts. And then as you can see, the carriage is all set up and ready to install on the plane. No work for you to do there. It's ready to go. This is just going to attach to the fuselage as you see it. And then last up is the horizontal stabilizer. Horizontal stabilizer looks flat to me. I don't see any problems there. There's a look at the leading edge. Good, very good. And yeah, it looks like that extra tube goes right there. So the stabilizer goes in from the side. There's a spar tube that'll go in right there, and that'll connect onto the fuselage. They do use a torque tube on the back for the elevator, but that connects when you slide the 2 horizontal stabilizer halves together. Again, don't forget to flex your surfaces. They're using EPO. One other tip I'll give you if you're a beginner, when it comes to these EPO hinges, over time they do eventually tend to let go. One of the things you can do to prolong the life of an EPO hinge is to buy 3M Blenderm tape. I'll put a link in the description so you can get it on Amazon, but put Blenderm tape, and what you want to do is fold the surface down and then lay your tape in, and then turn it over and fold the surface down again and lay your tape in on the hinge. Do that on the top and bottom, both sides, and that will help prolong the life of your EPO hinges. All right, that wraps up my first look at the FMS 1300mm PA-18 Cub. I'd like to say thanks to FMS for supplying this airplane for review. Unfortunately, I will not be able to get this one out at the field before the live stream for a flight video. It just came a little bit too late for me to be able to do that. I will get a flight video up just as soon as I can. I'm just not able to do it ahead of the live stream. If you like this kind of content, make sure you smash that thumbs up button, subscribe and hit the bell so you know when new videos hit the channel. YouTube should recommend another video for you right about now. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy and go fly something.